I'm standing here in the University of Newcastle television production studio, where our students are making this program on creative industry careers. Sitting on our lounge, we have Communication Studies graduate Gillian Bencke, and she's going to talk to us about her pathway from high school to university and then a career as an artist. Thanks for coming in, Gillian. It's great to see you. Well, we have some great footage here of your art. Maybe you could talk us through how that's going.
Yeah, sure. Some people find that they're quite playful or they've got humour about them, which maybe they do, but I find that there's something a bit more kind of conceptual about the pieces, especially the more later stuff that I've done. And people sort of think, oh, you know, they've got these real personalities and characters, which I see that. But I also don't see them as playful, and I find that it's definitely the media that I'm working with, which is fabric, and often in other ones, buttons and things like that, and they can be quite cute. And I sort of like, I've struggled with that because I can see that, but I don't want cuteness. I want to explore an idea or a kind of concept that is maybe a little bit darker or a little bit more serious than perhaps I'm showing. And the titles really play into those sorts of things as well, I think, that add another layer to the piece, hopefully. So I've started to go, because of that, like wanting to, I guess, take that challenge that, okay, the media itself is quite difficult, and because it's playful and I'm not actually wanting that playfulness about them. They're not dolls, they're not something that you would play with. So the challenge is to then get something more serious out of this media that maybe is seen more like a craft. Like it's associated with crafting, and I want it to be a conceptual art piece, and I quite like that challenge, and at the moment the monotone is working for me. It's going more monotone with this sort of yeah, it's one colour fabric, and it's just stitching in one particular colour to get meaning and detail.
So as a career, how hard is it to explain to people what it is you do?
Yeah, that can be difficult, and sometimes I, struggle with that. It's hard to explain because it's not linear, and it's not sort of just this. I did this, and this is what. Now, and it's just followed on, and obviously I'm ended up here. It's very much a kind of started doing this, and then that led to that, and I met this person, and so it's quite an exercise in patience, I think, maybe this career, and having a little bit of that is sometimes a good thing. Yeah.
I mean, we talk about the creative industries as being creative people being able to be creative and also create small businesses while doing that. So can you talk me through how that sort of came about for you?
Yeah, as an artist you kind of need money as well, and decided to develop a business of my own, which was a label, I suppose, but it was a label that was selling small wearable pieces that were still all fabric, and I was making little brooches and collars and kind of quite left of centre stuff, I would say, like it's quite unusual and deconstructed, I suppose. And I realised after many years of doing that, completely uncommercial, and actually it's just really art that I wanted to do. So I got a little tiny space set up in a kind of a corner of my house at the moment, and that's where I kind of quickly get to after I've dropped children at school and things like that, and this is where I can listen to podcasts all day, which I love, while I work. So it's just all made by a sewing machine based to get the shape, the initial shape. and then it's all completely hand worked. So I don't use anything that is bought. Actually, I don't buy stuffing for it. The fabric is given to me, or I get from people that I know that make clothes, and these are all offcuts from those. So nothing is sourced with something in mind. It's more the fabric comes to me, and it might sit there for a long time, and I use it eventually because I decide that that's what I need, that piece I need to use.
So you're now working at home. Have you always worked at home?
No, not always. I've recently been part of Renew Newcastle, and that was a very good opportunity for me after having small children to refocus my any creative thought that maybe would come along again.
Well, gallery exhibitions are an important part of being an artist, and here's some footage from a recent opening of the University of Newcastle Creative Industries student exhibition at Newcastle's Watt Space Gallery.
Okay, welcome everybody. There are three very different and fascinating exhibitions here tonight, and they have a lot to offer the attentive viewer.
This was my work, along with the two smaller panels on either side. I created the work based on my response to the China trip that I went on 6 months ago with the uni. So creating the grid work was there's 1 square for every hour that we were there.
My name's Amy. I went on the Creative Arts tour of Hong Kong and China. I focused on taking pictures of animals mainly that I came across. I'd done a series of dog portraits, so I took some photos of dogs from each of the cities. So I did Hong Kong, Shanghai and Beijing, and just sort of chose my best from there.
The overall landscape was a response to landscapes that I saw and that I photographed, and I put together from a few different pieces, and then I watercoloured over the top to change it, because since coming back my memory has then altered. I'm not 100% sure what's real, what has changed, what's different, so that's my response.
So thank you all for coming out tonight. I hope you've enjoyed all the works that are here this evening, and have a wonderful night. Thank you.
Now, you graduated in Communication Studies in 2001. What was your experience of going to university?
So I did a communication studies here at Newcastle University because it was under the Bachelor of Arts degree, and I decided that doing just a straight fine art Bachelor of Arts was not as broad as doing the communications degree. I could do more subjects, and that allowed me to go to definitely touch on the arts a lot, the visual arts and creative arts that I'd already done a lot of at school, and go on to do other things that I hadn't experienced, like photography yet, or lots of the media, lots of the radio that I started in as well as a first year.
Yeah, great. Now, you just talked about school. You went
Yes.
to the Waldorf School, which is a Steiner school in Newcastle.
It is, yeah.
How was that experience, and what subjects did you do at school?
All the standard school subjects, but then we definitely were based in the arts. So we did a lot of visual art, a lot of fine art, a lot of classical music.
What did you want to be when you left school?
I don't think I really had much of a plan. I'm not a big sort of planner in that sense. I think when I had finished school, I had decided that I was never studying again, and I wasn't going to university, and I was sort of encouraged by an older sister to just put an application in and defer, which is what I did. I left the country and left all of that kind of study and thoughts behind like that, and went off to do other things, which was really good, because then I did actually eventually study again.
Yes. Well, here are a few other experiences of current creative industry students.
The skills you learn in terms of researching new ways of thinking and approaching your art practices, it's really good.
But for those who really love something and want to get better at it, and want to have a really engaging experience where they get to learn from teachers and peers, it's a really valuable investment.
Well, I want to do art therapy.
I've learnt that there are a lot of different avenues that you can take when getting a degree in fine art. And so, yeah, if I work for a gallery or if I work with the government, you know, something that where I'm either surrounded by or doing art will be fantastic.
I want to continue exploring art making, hopefully maybe going into illustrating or maybe getting a job at a gallery.
After university, I want to go to university again and get a master's and then a PhD, and then end up working at a museum as a director of education and outreach for art programs.
To try and incorporate more art making into my current practice as a social worker, which means expanding what I do in terms of the work with individuals, groups, families and communities.
So then everything took a whole nother turn and you ended up in France. Can you talk me through that?
Well, we were living in Paris, and in Paris there's a little sweatshop district, and they would bring their rubbish bins out every morning or evening, I think it was, to throw away all the scraps. And I'd heard about this from, I think, students of fashion or something. They were told by their tutors to go there and you'd get scraps out of the bin and you could make stuff, then it wasn't expensive for you to experiment with. So I started doing that, going through the rubbish bins before the rubbish trucks came to collect all the fabric, and I started making little objects, I guess they're kind of dolls or creatures, which is sort of what I've gone on to develop in what I'm working in now. And that was quite a long time ago that I started this, and it was kind of a process of what can I do with this stuff? Like, it's being chucked away. I've always been interested in fabric, I guess. Yeah, so that's sort of how that little part of the story started.
So Gillian, what does the future hold for you? Where do you want to go with this career?
I want to exhibit. That's the main thing I want to do, is just to get as much experience in further exhibitions, group exhibitions, solo exhibitions, just different stuff. I'd like to do more installations, which there's quite a few pieces that I'm working on at the moment that are larger than the pieces I've brought in today, and they're it's all fabric still. I'm still kind of in love with the fabric stuff, and I think that will always be part of my career. And I want to sort of create spaces and experiences as well in my work, and I think that's my focus, is to not do product design, which was sort of part of my past and brought me to this place where I am now, but to focus on that and push that as much as I can and see where it leads me, really, and I'm open to whatever that is.
Yeah, great. So if you were to talk to a student who's at school, who's looking at the world and trying to work out what they want to be, and they might want to go in your sort of path, what advice would you give to them?
School, you know, is one thing, and the rest of the world is another. So I think, finding lots of different things to skill yourself with, maybe, and expose yourself to, definitely, yeah.
Thank you very much for being with us today, Gillian. It's just wonderful to have you here today.
Thank you.
So, I'm Christy Street. Thanks for joining us. You've been watching See What You Could Be.